People think DMs need to be great at rules, combat design, and storytelling, which is a lot and makes the job seem terrifying. But what if I told you that most of these are actually kind of optional? I've been playing for over 20 years, and I realized that the core job of the DM actually fits in a single sentence, which determines whether you'll have fun at the table or burn out fast. So, today we're gonna find out what it is, and I will even share with you 4 tricks you can use to become a better DM than you ever thought possible. Okay, so let's start with the problem. I think most people think being a DM is way harder than it actually is because the internet has built this image of what a dungeon master is supposed to be. Actual plays changed the way people see D&D. That's not necessarily a bad thing because Critical Role and Dimension 20 brought millions of people into the hobby, and I love that. But it also did something sneaky to the way we think about the DM's role. Because when you watch Matt Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan, you're watching someone who is a professional. It's literally their job. They are trained actors and have spent decades DMing for their friends before going pro. This, coupled with the crazy high production value, is immediately visible to anyone who watches those shows. And although I do believe we can learn a few tricks from these guys, it makes people miss what DMing is actually about. I think it's kind of like watching Formula 1 and thinking, oh, so that's what driving is. It's technically the same activity, but the gap between what a professional does on camera and what you need to do at your kitchen table with your friends is wide. And I think the internet structurally has collapsed that gap. I make DMing videos, so I know it's not because creators want to hurt people, but the advice content and Reddit posts all tend to kind of treat the Formula 1 version as the baseline, so to speak. And if you're standing at the bottom looking up at that, yeah, you end up feeling terrified and feel like you'll never be ready. But I think that actually you probably already are, because here's the magic sentence I'd like you to repeat after me. The DM is not a performer, but an enabler. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, instead of creating the entire experience for the players, an enabler creates the conditions for the experience to happen. Your players are the ones who make the game because they make choices, come up with plans, and do things you never saw coming. That's where the magic moments live. And you, as the DM, cannot force most of that to happen. I think most of your job is to put interesting situations in front of those players and then to get really good at reacting to what they do. You don't really need to know what happens next or to have a plan for everything they might do. You need to place a situation, and to be clear, it can be extremely basic, like a locked door or some desperate villager, etc. And then you need to watch and listen to what your players do and respond as best you can to their choices. Everything else is decoration. And don't get me wrong, I love decoration. I'm not saying you shouldn't decorate. I kind of make videos on decorating, so to speak. But if it keeps you from starting your own DMing journey, you might be overthinking this. The core of it is really that simple. Interesting situation, player choice, honest response. Everything else just flows from there. This is really important to me because I don't think people quit DMing because they're bad at voices, but they do quit or never start because they believe the job feels too big, when it really isn't. You've played pretend with your friends as kids. You just convinced yourself you forgot how to. Now, I can already read some of the comments, so let's address these. But what about world building? Don't I need a world? Let's pretend published settings don't exist, and you do need a custom location. The thing is, you do need a starting location, but it can be just one town with a few names and a problem. That's already a world as far as D&D is concerned. It's small, but that's just how they start. You don't need a continent map and a whole pantheon before session 1. You just need enough to fill the next few hours. You'll have all the time in the world to add things as you go and play. Because your players experience the world at a very small scale, like what's in this room and who's talking to me right now. And if you really don't know where to start, you can get the Living Town by clicking the link in the description. It's my ready-made starting town collection of NPCs, and it's a great place to start. Okay, but this is just you telling me to get good at improv, and I suck at improv. Well, I think people tend to miss something very important about DM improv. It's quite different from performance improv, in my opinion. Performance improv feels hard because you're trying to be funny and because it's in real time. But when you DM, the audience is the players. And you can always pause by asking them to give you a second, please, or even go with, I don't know, let's do this way for now and we'll check the rules later. The point is, because it's a game and not a show, most players will find it normal, and you don't have to be as quick as people trying to entertain a paying audience on stage. But what about the rules? There are so many rules. There are rules because it's a game, yes. But if we're talking about 5e, I think you mostly need to know how to run a skill check and how combat works at a basic level. If you can learn poker or Monopoly or whatever, you got this. That's just a few pages of the player's handbook. Most of the rest you can look up later, and it does not come up that often. Your players will forgive you if you have to check a rule from time to time, or one of them might even know the rule and tell you. But they might have a harder time forgiving you for making the game feel like homework because you were so stressed about getting everything right that you forgot to make it fun, though. I'm not saying rules are useless here, but you'll get them down eventually. What I'm saying is, if it stops you from starting, you're giving it too much importance. And I think that's the thing we see coming back here. Every single one of those "but what about" questions has the same very basic answer. You're allowed to learn most of the stuff while doing the job. By the way, if you find this video helpful at all and it motivates you to start on your own DMing journey, please hit the like button with your best ability so it can reach other people who might need it as well. Alright, but so if the job is smaller than you think and the skills are things you grow into and not really needed to start, what do you actually do before a session? How do you get your head in the right place? And I think this is where a lot of the advice out there starts feeling useless for people who are afraid of starting their DMing journey, because it focuses on prep, like on what to write, how many encounters to plan, how detailed the notes should be, etc, etc. And that's all important, of course, but some people freeze way before that point. So here are 4 things that I think actually help with that. The first one is stop preparing answers and start preparing situations. I think most DM prep is kind of secretly answer prep. People just sit there and try to figure out what's gonna happen. Like, what if the players go left, or if they want to fight that NPC? But that's the player's job. So spend more time on the situation instead of its outcome. An example situation would be, there's a bridge and someone's guarding it. And that someone has a reason not to let you pass. And you find out what the players do about it with the players at the table. The second one is, your players have never seen the good version. What I mean is, there's no comparison point to what's not in there. If you forgot to introduce an NPC to the players, well, they don't know. Just like they don't know about the plot twist you missed, or that the encounter was supposed to be a lot harder. They're living in the only version of this session that exists, and therefore, the pressure you're feeling is mostly just pressure against an imaginary standard. The players aren't comparing you to the version of you that prepped more, but simply playing the game. The third one now. When you don't know what to do, just describe something. When you're lost and the players do something you didn't expect, just start to describe what they see, hear, smell, touch, etc. This buys you time, and more importantly, it gives the initiative back to the players by giving them something to react to or ask questions about. This makes it way easier to then get back on your feet. And fourth, before your next session, ask yourself just one question. What is the most interesting thing that could happen tonight? It's different from what will or should happen tonight, because you're not trying to guess the future. But I like this question because it can act as your compass, so to speak. If you know the most interesting possibility, you'll be more enthusiastic in your descriptions and in a more positive mindset, which will make everything else way easier too. So yeah, I think the DM's job is smaller than you think. You just need to put something interesting in front of your players and to respond honestly to what they do. You'll just get good at the rest eventually. You don't have to be good at this before you start. Just start. And I promise, you will have fun, and so will your players. Most of them just want to play so bad. So just become that enabler and let them. And once you've started and want to take things to the next level, I think the first other thing you should try to get good at is world building. Because it's mostly an out-of-the-table thing, so no extra pressure. And it's a lot of fun. And to learn a step-by-step technique that produces actual usable results at the table, click on this video next.